let's talk about the bullpens and how they're used in the playoffs here. So, my question to you guys, are bullpen games still an effective way to win a game? Now, my argument with that is hitters see your high leverage guys more than usual in a series. Like you during the year, you might see like one bullpen game every fifth day. So your team might not even see a bullpen game or a high leverage guy, depending on what the score is. In the playoffs, you're seeing these guys 4, 5, 6, heck, maybe even 7 days in a row. And big league hitters are going to make an adjustment and be able to hit these guys. I don't care if they throw 500 miles an hour. We've always said these big league hitters can time up a bullet. And if they see these guys enough and make the adjustments, is it still an effective way? Or do you need the guys like Terry Skubal and the outing from Jack Flaherty, and you need a couple starters to actually give you some length so you don't have to burn your bullpen every single game? What are your thoughts?
Go ahead, Harrison. You go first.
So I think the bullpen game can kind of cut both directions. So for the Dodgers against the Padres, the Dodgers went bullpen game in game 4, which we thought was insane to go a bullpen game, elimination game. Like, what are you doing? Like, that's the best you can do as a bullpen game. Almost like it was a joke. And then the bullpen came out and basically just threw up chairs all night. But I think the unique thing about a bullpen game is that, and there's a stat for Fernando Tatis in games, I want to say it was 3, 4, and 5. In 12 at bats, he had seen like 7 or 8 different pitchers. So like you're not getting a chance to see many guys multiple times. I think your dominant starter is still the ideal scenario. A guy like Tarek Skubal who goes 6 or 7 innings, top-notch stuff, hard to hit, demoralizing, saves the bullpen for the nights that they need them, where a guy can only go 4 or 5. But the bullpen game can work so long as you've got the matchup set up. And I will say Dave Roberts, to his credit, managed that game masterfully with how he played the righties and lefties and when he brought guys in, because he constantly had good matchups. Now, part of that's the luck of where the lineup falls, but it's also having the right guys ready and having the right sequence ready. So if you can match it up that way, the bullpen games can work because you're not giving these guys a second look at the same guy. If you can't get it matched up like that and you're putting out relievers who are not nearly as good as your starters or they're more back-end guys, then it can blow up in your face, kind of like it did for the Dodgers today where, Brazier got off to a bumpy start. Then was it Knack that came in and got lit up?
Yeah.
You have to have the sequence right. If it's not right, that game can blow up in your face.
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, I how do I want to say this? So they had Brazier when they did the bullpen game in game 4. It was kind of a similar, Brazier started today, and Brazier kind of got the opener there. I guess if you want to call it the opener, not the starter. Brazier in game 4 against San Diego faced 4 guys, got 4 outs.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you want to play the bullpen game, your guys have to get the outs that they're expected to get out. I mean, it comes down to that. The problem you have is the margin of error is so much smaller.
Yep.
Right.
It's so much smaller. You don't have the, okay, tough first inning, I'm going to go out there and really set the tone in the second inning, and we're kind of back on an even playing field. Now, all of a sudden, you're bringing a second arm in, a third arm in. You're in the 4th inning, you're on your 5th arm. Like, you're just behind the 8 ball. So, like, that's where it becomes really challenging, is the margin of error is just so thin. It almost didn't hurt them as much. I mean, they lost the game, but it went Brazier and then Knack, and then the lefty, his name is escaping me off the bat. He had like 4 or 5 for the Dodgers. And then they had that junior guy came in and threw like 3 innings and did actually really, really well. Now, unfortunately, that would have been much more high leverage for him if it wasn't 6-0 at the time, right? And so, I think that was the plan. Kind of those 4 arms were kind of the 1, 2, 3, 4 for Roberts. It just, the problem is you're down 6-0. And I don't know, Nick, to open your original question there. Like, I agree that you give these guys, you see someone 6, 7, 5, whatever times, you're going to figure them out. Is it that much different though than a starting pitcher go 3 times through a lineup in game 1 and then seeing him again in game 4 or game 5? Like, is it? I mean, it is different, but is it that much different? I mean, like it's still seeing a guy 3, 4, 5 times. It just happens to be over 2 games versus 5 games.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think it can work. I think you need the right guys. I think you need the right plan. And as simple as it can get, the guys that are on the mound have to get the guys out. It doesn't matter if it's a bullpen game or a starting game. If you're not getting the guys out, it really doesn't make a difference.
I think you made a great point. Like the margin of error is so small because I bring you in to get 3 outs and you give up back-to-back base hits, and then you get the next 2 guys and the next guy gets a single. Now you're 5 or 6 hitters deeper than you're expecting to be.
Right.
And
right.
and
So
now I have to think on the fly and readjust my whole game plan where
you might get your 4 outs, but they're not the 4 guys we needed you to get out.
Right. And that's why those 33 innings that the Dodgers did, like they got who they needed out when they needed it out, and that's the result. 33 scoreless innings.
It was a lot of bullpen innings too in that 33 innings. So
yeah,
the guys were getting people out, and I do think that to Sean's point, you got to get the outs, but I think more importantly too, like you also have to look at how the series has gone. Like the bullpen game in Game 4 was a bit dicey because you were leaving not a lot for Game 5. So you had all these guys went. Now you're going into Game 5 hoping Yamamoto is effective, which he was.
He was awesome.
I mean, he, his stuff wasn't dominant. He was getting a lot of contact, but he was pitching to where it needed to be, and getting balls put in play and getting balls hit at guys. And I mean, he blew through 5 innings with 50 some odd pitches. I mean, he was cruising, barely broke a sweat. And then they went to the bullpen and didn't have to worry about it, but because they only needed a couple guys to come in. But I think the other part with the bullpen is that many of these guys are specialists. They're really good against righties, but not lefties. Really good against lefties, but not righties. They're ground ball guys. And that mix and match, like if you have a guy who's coming in who's a right-handed specialist and he's got 2 righties and a lefty, he may be able to get you a couple quick outs, but now he's facing a lefty who's got a much higher split against him. And you've got to make sure you got these guys in a situation where their stuff is set up to do well. They got to get people out, to Sean's point. Doesn't matter who you are. You got to get guys out. And we saw the Padres get seriously let down by Dylan Cease in the series, who couldn't get anybody out in both games he pitched. And that's why they ended up in such a tough spot. But bullpen games can work, but you're putting a lot of faith in not having to rely heavily on that bullpen another night.